I recently seen on your page actually about the suicide rates for black men being higher than any other in any racial group. Why do you think that is?
It's a variety of things that plays into that right now. I think we mentioned one of them with accessibility, right? Like a lot of us don't have accessibility to mental health resources, but there's also another big thing which we talked about earlier, which is just a taboo when it comes to mental health, right? A lot of us don't feel like we can have these kind of conversations about where we are mentally, about not feeling like we are up to par. And so that kind of festers and creates this snowball effect where you get into this depression, right? And I always tell people, like, a lot of people don't understand suicide. I've had suicidal ideations before when I was younger, so I understand it to a certain degree, right? I haven't had suicide attempts, but I've definitely had suicidal ideation. So I understand the mindset that an individual is in when they are contemplating suicide. Suicide is a solution, right? A lot of people don't like to have that conversation, but that is what people deem it to be. Suicide is a solution for people that are dealing with something that they feel like is too heavy for them to actually be able to come out of, right? And so the solution is to end it all, because I don't have the tools to be able to actually navigate this stress or anxiety or depression that I'm dealing with, right? And so once we can understand suicide from that aspect, we can understand why people decide to die by suicide, and then also understand what we can do in order to help them, right?
I just want to say right there, like, that's a very big statement that he just made. I've never had those thoughts myself, but that's a very big statement. There's something that I do want to bring up too, though. I want to know if they bring it up. Do us as men, are we too harsh on ourselves? I know society puts pressure on us, but are we perpetuating those stereotypes and things that society puts out there for us about, like, success and what success is, how much money you have and all these other things, who can you take care of, how many women do you get, what kind of car you drive, all this other stuff. All these things are the part of the pressures, and we perpetuate those pressures. But let's see if they get into that type of stuff.
Try and make a solution-based thinking. Okay, you're depressed. Why are you depressed? What's actually happening? And how can we help you out of that, right? So I think one of the big reasons, like I said, is just accessibility, affordability, and then also the fact that it's very taboo in our culture for us to be talking about mental health. And then what black men specifically, bro, like, we don't feel like we are allowed to be human. That is a big thing, bro. Like, that is a huge thing, bro. It's a huge thing. Like, I even experienced it myself, and I talk about mental health all the time, right? Like, the other day, last week, I had a moment where I lashed out on my brother, right? Because I was dealing with mad stress throughout the week, IG, all these different things. I'm trying to launch this community. All these things are going on. And so I lashed out on my brother towards the end of the week because the stress was just building up. I didn't feel like I had a moment throughout the week where I was just allowed to be human and actually feel that I was stressed and take some time away from all the things that I was doing. I didn't.
Got it. I understand what he's saying now. But you know what's interesting about this? I don't even think that this is necessarily a black man thing, but they're black men, so I understand why they're talking about it as being black men. I think as men, we always feel like we have to be just strong. We have to be these figures. We have to keep it together, keep our composure, and we're always looked down on when we do express ourselves. So when we don't express ourselves and then we have this big lashing out moment, it almost seems like this big event. But if you can express yourself, if you can feel emotions, it would never get to this point. And I personally feel like we should have more outlets. I asked my girlfriend, like, as a black man, where do we go to express ourselves, to have conversations? Where are these outlets for us? Who are we talking to? A lot of people feel like they can't talk to their women. You're not going to the park and talking to your homeboys about this stuff. A lot of people aren't. So where are you going to express yourself? What's your outlet? Me personally, I've developed a relationship not only with my woman, but just my friends, the community that I've built, all these things where I can express how I feel if I am feeling a certain way and get positive feedback, just get reassurance, affirmation, and all that stuff. But a lot of black men don't have that. I'm privileged for it.
As myself to say, okay, yo, bro, you know what? You're going through a lot. Like, just take some time and slow down. I didn't allow myself to do that. And I knew I was stressed. I remember saying to myself, like, yo, bro, you super stressed right now. Like, you need to put something down. But I still didn't do it, right? And I also, after I lashed out, I was so upset at myself because in my mind,
also, stop thinking you can do everything. Stop thinking you can control every narrative, control every facet of your life. Stop thinking that you have to be doing everything as well. Like, that's a problem too. You're not behind because you don't have X amount of dollars. You don't need to have your hands in all these different pots. Everybody doesn't need to act the way that you want them to act. Stop. You're hurting yourself.
Bro, you lead this platform. How you lashing out on your brother? I'm not even allowing myself to be human after I lashed out because I'm thinking to myself, you should never done that. I'm not giving myself grace. I'm not empathizing, any of that. All the things that I'm telling people to do, I'm struggling doing it with myself, right? And so when you think about it from that lens, it's just hard for us, right? It's hard for us to dehumanize ourselves, it's hard for us to understand that we are human beings and we're allowed to, one, make mistakes. We're allowed to not be where we want to be. We're allowed to be different than other people. We're allowed to feel our full range of emotions, and we're allowed to be struggling, right? And I think that's the biggest part of it, is like we don't feel like we're allowed to be in any of these states. And so because of that, we don't reach out. We don't have these conversations. And as a result of that, we end up getting into a depressed state. And unfortunately, a lot of us end up getting into a position where we feel like suicide is the best option and the solution for what we're dealing with.
I'm glad you said that, because I didn't put two and two together until you did say that. But you know, obviously we have a lot of black men are going through that stress and depression in their lives, and they feel the need to cope with, you know, whether it's drugs or like when you listen to rappers nowadays and they start to say like, I have these suicidal thoughts, or like I'm really going through a lot, and people are just saying, oh well, he's on some like, you know, just emo, whatever the case is. But a lot of these black men and rappers are going through this, and maybe this is one way for them to vent themselves, maybe through the music or through the drugs, you know. He's popping some type of drugs or alcohol, like you know. And like when I seen that, it caught me off guard, but I wasn't surprised about that stat. And I'm just like, the fact about us not being able to be human, you know, it does play a factor, because there's so much stress put on us to either succeed or be in a level, or be in a.
That's what, there it is right there, the success talk. Like, first of all, you can't even do things that make you happy as a black man. I think that this conversation is very, very important. Like, you can't even do stuff that makes you happy as a black man. If you like to garden, if you like to drink White Claws, if you like to do a bunch of different things, you can't even do these things because you're villainized and you're demonized. You're seen as X, Y, and Z. They call you all types of things outside of your names because you know, I like to watch Love and Hip Hop or something like that, but you can't even do those things, which is crazy. But I think a bigger issue, I think a huge issue to go along with like not allowing yourself to be human, is you warping your mind. If you reframe what success is, you would not be chasing all these things. Capitalism has you held up in a situation in which you want to be greater than what you are. You want to get as much money as possible, cars as possible. But I promise you, it's making you make dumb decisions. It's making you sacrifice your happiness. It's making you do drastic things, cut off people, and do silly stuff in order to get to a goal that you think will make you happy. And you know that there are people out there that are happy in their certain situation, but you say that can't be you. Why? The shoes and the clothes don't make you happy. They're not making you happy. What's going to make you happy is finding a new meaning to success.
We'll be able to support everybody financially, so we got to work twice as harder.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Take on extra shifts, extra hours. I know men like ourselves. We work. We got the podcast, but we work plenty of hours.
This is not supporting.
Like, you know what I mean? So it's just, not yet.
Hopefully,
you know what I mean? But,
eventually, absolutely.
But you know, I still try to take that time out to go to the gym, and you know, I think, you know, whether we want to admit it or not, I think a lot of black men do have these suicidal thoughts, and I know people. I know people that I was close to that actually took their lives from suicide, and then you would never think like, yo, their lives looked perfect on the outside. You never know what people are going through on the inside, and I'm just like, wow, they really did that. Like, it caught me off guard because they never expressed that, like, you know, they was going through something. So you know, that's a big topic to kind of have.
Yeah, I also think that a lot of men are afraid to look weak. Like, sometimes you the rock of your family. I know me personally, everybody come to me to talk, but it's like, who does that person talk to?
I want to know though, do women perpetuate these things? Like, all this is in the pursuit of happiness and X, Y, and Z, but there are a lot of people that hold blame, and society is a big one, but women are a part of the society. Do women hold blame in these situations right here? Are women the ones who say you have to have X, Y, and Z car, dollars, you gotta put this types of money up, you gotta be able to support me and my lifestyle, I don't want to work, kids, X, Y, and Z, which then makes men go out there and chase these things because they're not accepting? How much blame do women have in this conversation?
You gotta have a outlet to express your feelings without feeling like you're being judged. I think that's the most important thing. Like, you don't want to be judged or look weak in front of other people. So it's good to have like bros you could talk to, or anybody really. I mean, but that's why therapy is important, I believe.
That's a good point about these spaces, because I do want to get into that. So we're into my next topic. I do often hear people, you know what I mean, complain about men having podcasts, specifically black men. And
people.
So now that the question is like, where can men be themselves, where can they talk or whatever, I think that there's an attack and there's some validity to it about podcasts and stuff like that.
So I hear them complain, oh, y'all need to just go to therapy, why do y'all have podcasts? How important do you think it is for black men to have these spaces, like a podcast or whatever the case may be?
I think,
let's be clear though, I ain't gonna lie, I hate this podcast. I hate everything about this podcast, but I keep keep going back to them. Entertaining to an extent. They make good content for me to make good content too. All y'all do not need podcasts to ask the same questions over and over again to get your confirmation for what you believe in after you've been told thousands of times that it's wrong. Hang that up. Go seek actual therapy. Go have actual conversations and not those for the content. Please. That's dumb.
I think it's super important for us to have spaces where we feel comfortable in expressing ourselves, right? A lot of times we don't have that space until we go to the barbershop or we're sitting here having a conversation. No cameras, no mics, no audio being recorded.
Basketball, locker
you know what I'm saying?
room.
Exactly, locker room, that kind of stuff, right? So it's very important. What I always think about is when I was in college, right? I had a group of bros, and they had a dorm, and we would all go into their dorm room after a long, stressful day, and we would just sit in there. We would watch shows, we would play games, we freestyle, we do a bunch of random stuff. And after I left, I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, like I feel I'm good. I'm chilling. Like, I feel light. Right. You know what I'm saying? And when I finally graduated and I started living, I was living in Massachusetts by myself. I didn't have that outlet. I remember feeling super depressed.
But what I want to say to that though is like, what was the substance of the conversations that you had while you're with those men? Now I understand sometimes you just need an outlet to just breathe, but people don't be having meaningful conversations in those. Like he said, they freestyle, play video games and all that, but you never talked about your issues. So you still harboring those issues. And then all of that stuff builds over the years and you take those into your personal relationships, whether it be work, whether it be intimate, whether it be your kids, whatever it is, your family. You take all this stuff into your relationships because you never let that stuff go. I think that men don't have a lot of meaningful conversations, even in those areas. He just named a lot of places, but these are surface level conversations, to be quite honest with you, like being 100. People go to the barbershop and talk about LeBron James and then go to the park and talk about LeBron James to play basketball. Like, I just don't understand. I get it. I get what he's saying. It's good to have those spaces, but when are these spaces having good, meaningful conversations that impact your life on a day-to-day basis? When are those had? Those are never had, in my opinion. I ain't gonna lie. I might have had a couple of good conversations at the park with a fellow friend or whatever. And like I said, I've built relationships to where that I can speak to these people normally and about things that actually affect me, but not at the barbershop in the park. And you rapping with your friends, you need to find a constructive outlet, one that allows you to express your true feelings.
I was like, yo, why do I feel so depressed? And it's like, because bro, what you felt like, that therapeutic outlet that you had where you could go with your bros and you guys could just vent and just talk about stuff, you don't have that anymore, right? And a lot of us don't have that within our friend groups, right? And so we go to these podcasts, we start our podcast with friends and we start expressing, right? And we share. And our expression is very raw sometimes, and it's not filtered, right? And it's not coming from a lens of actually being healed or healing, right? And so when it goes out into the public, people are like, "What the hell? That's what they be talking about?" Right. It's like, yeah, this is what we talk about, right?
And
like
when other guys hear, they be like, "Yo, these are the conversations we've been having."
Yeah, these are the conversations we've been having, right?
No, it's not.
I think it's two parts, right? I don't want to absolve us of any accountability, right? We need to hold ourselves accountable, especially when we have platforms. We need to make sure that our language, our tone, our voice, the way that we communicate is in a way that is conducive to what we're actually trying to do in terms of our mission, morals, values, whatever the case may be, right? And we need to determine that for ourselves. So we do need to hold ourselves accountable. But on the same token,
and that our conversations are constructive, not just about who gives the best head in the game right now, who could suck a mean dick. No, actual constructive conversations.
Flip side of that, like, I think the black community has a certain level of apprehension towards black people just in general. Like, we're just very apprehensive towards each other, bro. You know, we don't empathize with each other, right? When we see a black person that's making a mistake, first thing we go to do is criticize, write a comment, say something negative, whatever the case may be. We don't even think, yo, what if they're going through something? What if there's something underneath that? Like, we don't have these thoughts at all. Yeah. And I think that is one of our biggest problems, is that we don't stop to empathize, right? We don't stop to empathize. And I think before I even do any, like, because I react to a lot of stuff, I look at a lot of stuff online and I'm like, dang, I don't really know. I don't really agree with that, but I can understand where they're coming from. Even if it's something that doesn't feel right to me. Even if it's a black woman that's like, yo, divest from black men. Don't deal with black men. There's no such thing as black love. That stuff hurts me. But I can understand where she's coming from. I don't go onto her comments and, yo, you crazy, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Because I get it. I know where it's coming from. It's not my place to then go into that community and then say, yo, y'all are crazy, blah, blah, and invalidate them for how they feel. It's my place to hold myself accountable, to have a platform where I can now speak on those things and educate people. I always say empathize and educate. Empathize with the person, allow them to express how they feel, create that space, but then also educate when necessary. Sometimes you can't educate right in a person's platform. Sometimes it has to come outside of that. Sometimes it has to come in a conversation with them later, one-on-one. Sometimes it's just not in the comments, bro. And a lot of times, like, we think we commenting back and forth and arguing with people and like we gonna debate and change their mind. It's like, bro, people already hell bent on their idea. I make posts all the time. People come in my comments, leave a thought, a whole think piece, bro. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This person, I know this person gonna be able to listen. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna write a paragraph back. And it's not even disrespectful. I'm coming from a space where I'm just trying to get them to understand where I'm coming from. They write a whole paragraph back. They don't even read it. It's like they didn't even read it.
No, because they came to vent. I've come to learn that too. Like, I can post a video, I can post comments on stuff, or, you know, we could, on the podcast, we'll say different things, and I'll respond to comments. People just want to vent. I like to think that I give outlets. Like, I host Twitter Spaces quite often. I'm addicted to Twitter Spaces. Even some of I want to start doing like live streams where, you know, people can respond to things because maybe they didn't understand what I was saying, or maybe they need a deeper dive into the situation. But people just want to vent. People need a place. If you need a place to vent, let me know, and I will give you a place to vent. I promise you, I will do that. You might get 2 cents from me, but for the most part, I will give you a space to vent. But at some point, though, I'm looking at you crazy if you're not willing to have a constructive conversation, or at least like heal a little bit from what you're venting from. Take in some of the stuff that somebody has to say to you, because we're being constructive over here.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, why am I wasting my time, right? Like, I could be writing a post. I could be helping somebody get therapy. I could be talking to my moms. I could be doing all this different. Why am I going back and forth with somebody in the comments? Anytime I see people arguing in the comments, I'm just like, bro, like, y'all must not have better things to do. Right? Like, y'all just must not have better things to do, right? And I know
sometimes they don't. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
And as content creators, right? Like, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say on this, right? As content creators, it is our job to invoke conversation, but I think we need to invoke conversation that leads to a positive change, right? Or leads to our goal, whatever our goal is, right? So it's important for us to invoke this conversation and allow people to lead it to however they want to lead it. But we have to also understand, like, where do we want this conversation to go? How do we want people in our community talking to each other? And how do we want to push the culture forward and all that kind of stuff, bro? So I always try to, I don't want people arguing in my comments, but at the end of the day, I can't control that. I can create the content that facilitates conversation, and how y'all choose to converse is up to y'all.
I 1000% agree. This is a different type of video for me. This is different. This isn't me calling somebody out X, Y, and Z. This is a call to action. I, as a content creator, feel a personal responsibility not to be the Andrew Tates, not to be the Kevin Samuels, not to be the Sneakos, not to be those guys. I want to give men a place. I want to give women a place. I want to give whoever a place to have constructive conversations. There's a lot of negativity on the internet. This isn't my, like, we need peace, love, all this stuff. Hey, it's fun when it's ratchet sometimes. It really is. But if we can never have constructive conversations that are geared towards helping as opposed to angering other folks, then, you know, we'll never get to the solution of whatever the problem is. But, you know, I could be wrong.